Been a big story all year, and now it's time for weather watchers to start turning their attention from tornadoes to hurricanes, because today is the first day of the Atlantic hurricane season. Marysol Castro is in Galveston, Texas, with more on that for us this morning. Marysol, good morning again.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, everyone at home. Well, Galveston knows devastation all too well. The city bore witness to the first and deadliest storm ever. Back in 1900, we weren't even naming storms. It was just known as the storm of 1900. 6,000 people died. More than a century later, the city was tested yet again. Hurricane Ike back in 2008. And despite all the devastation, Galvestonians know here that back then and today, they will forever be resilient. It was a storm the size of the very state it hit. Hurricane Ike made landfall in Galveston, Texas as a strong Category 2 hurricane on September 13, 2008, packing 110-mile-per-hour winds and a 15-foot surge of water. 112 people died, and it was the third costliest hurricane in history, with nearly $30 billion in damage.
It's going to come back. So come back.
Natalie Monsrud owned the Star Drugstore restaurant. She'd only been open for 1 year when Ike hit. Even in her worst days, she never lost hope in her city or her community.
Homemade ice cream, 2 homemade cakes in the end too, okay? You make 2 choices, I think. Either you just pick up and do, or you don't. And we just started working right away. Okay, Mr. Cruz.
3 years later, business is booming, and Natalie is proof positive that Galveston has made a comeback. 2008 was the last time a major hurricane made landfall in the U.S. This year, the National Hurricane Center predicts a very active tropical storm season.
The above normal activity that we've been in for the last couple of decades is going to continue this season as well. That means above average hurricane activity in the Atlantic.
Hi, Mrs. Thomas.
Yeah.
How are you? I'm Marysol Castro.
How are you, Marysol?
Lyda Ann Thomas was Galveston's mayor when Ike made landfall.
We have a lot of history. We've been through a lot of storms, a lot of bad times, a lot of good times.
Thomas's grandfather helped rebuild the city more than a century ago. After the hurricane of 1900, the deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history, more than 6,000 lives were lost.
We didn't have bonds. We didn't have FEMA. We didn't have insurance. The city had no money.
Mayor Thomas saw Galveston through one of its darkest hours with Hurricane Ike. And even now, her city's wounds are still healing.
Everybody's still struggling.
If 2011 marks the return of another active hurricane season, at least one survivor is prepared to stay.
There's just too much family and just memories and, you know, tears. So, yeah, too much that I couldn't walk away. Yeah.
And Chris, I have to tell you, there is a bit of a contrast if you go from one end of town to the other end of town. Just where you saw that store, the streets are bustling with folks. This is the tourist season, so businesses are expected to come back. But closer to the seawall, you can still see one rebuilt house and then 2 empty lots. One house in the process of being constructed and then 4 empty lots. So remember, after Hurricane Ike, Galveston lost about 10 to 12% of its population, and they're steadily working to bring folks back.
Marysol, thank you. Some great information. We'll see you in just a couple of minutes.